Good morning, Quadcopter 101 here, and I got a really neat quadcopter for you today. This is the WLToys Q212G spaceship, 01 spaceship. If you look at it closely, though, you'll see that is another reincarnation of the WLToys famous V262. It's been used many different airframes. This airframe has been used on many different quadcopters. Just mainly the variations have been the variations to the canopy. Now, if you notice, this one does not come with that big foam canopy that you see on the other previous versions of the V212. They've actually thought about it this time and reduced the weight of this quadcopter. Get rid of that heavy canopy and get something nice, lightweight, that won't burn out these motors, because, you know, the motors are going to be a problem or an issue with this quadcopter. It is, again, based on the V262, and V262 motors, they do burn out, but they're dirt cheap. You know, I think you can get them for $2 these days, and they're relatively easy to change. But what's neat about this quadcopter that's different from others is this one has an air barometer in it. This one maintains altitude. You can set it does an automatic takeoff and sets itself at about 1 meter height, and you can adjust the height of that with your throttle control. If you look at the throttle control, well, let me go over more items on this before we go into the transmitter. And if you notice, this transmitter has something special about it. I'll discuss that also. But I'll put the transmitter down for the time being. It is a 5.8 Gigahertz FPV quadcopter. It uses the V686G FPV system, namely the same camera as the V686G and the same receiver as the V686G that attaches to your transmitter. The battery of this quadcopter is the standard V262. I believe it's the 850 milliampere hour battery. I don't want to pull it out of there because it's in there, but I'm pretty sure that's the 850 milliampere hour battery. It does come with a nice anti-vibration mount, and it has a lot of give on it. So hopefully that'll eliminate or reduce most jello that you will see with this quadcopter. You probably won't see the jello with this quadcopter because it has a nice jiggle to it, just like a credit card mount. They thought it through this time, and to get rid of that vibration, you need a good jiggly mount, and this one is. Other features of this quadcopter to talk about, there's not much more I can talk about other than, again, it's a big feature. And its improvement over others is it has that barometer in it for maintaining level altitude. And that's going to come in real handy in FPV flying. Let's go over the transmitter right now. Transmitter appears to be one of your standard WLToys transmitter, with the exception of one thing. Notice this throttle. It's center spring, center return. The reason being, again, this quadcopter maintains altitude, and that altitude, once it's set, you just let it go back to let the spring return to the center. Again, that altitude, once it's set, you just let go of that throttle and let it hold its position in the air. Now, there's something special about this quadcopter. When you start it up, you got to hold this throttle down. Before you plug in, I believe it's after you plug in the battery. We'll find out here shortly. You pull down that throttle and turn on the transmitter to bind it to the quadcopter, and you finalize the bind with another up and down, like you hear that beep that you normally do with other toy grade quadcopters. But to take off, there's two different ways that you can take off. The first way that I prefer to do is to bring the both the throttle and the pitch down, and either hold them inboard for 3 seconds or hold them outboard for 3 seconds, and that'll turn on the quadcopter and set the quadcopter into idle. Once it's in idle, once you want to take off, you gradually increase the throttle and it will lift off, and whatever altitude it's at, if you let go of that throttle, it will maintain that altitude. An alternate way to take off is to simply bring down the pitch and the throttle and either move them inboard or move them outboard, and then immediately release them. And what that'll do is the quadcopter will automatically take off and reach a level of about 1 meter and then maintain that altitude. Of course, you're going to have to maintain its position using the pitch roll stick. So that's two ways of taking off. Similarly, there are two ways of landing. You can bring it in over the area where you want to land, and then gradually release or gradually reduce the throttle, and the quadcopter will come down and land at a position. And once it lands, it'll stay in idle for a certain amount of time if you hold down the throttle, and then it will shut off. I believe it's like 5-10 seconds. But I don't recommend doing that. Once it touches the ground, I highly recommend either you bring the throttle and the pitch down and move them inboard to shut off the motors immediately, or outboard to shut off the motors. You can also land by pressing down and holding the light key, which is this button here, and holding it down for 2 seconds. And that will make the quadcopter automatically land and shut down. That's actually a preferred way to do that. Now, the takeoffs, I don't recommend doing the automatic takeoffs too much. The reason being, when I've done that, you can hear those motors scream. It screams to reach that 1 meter height almost immediately. And that's putting a lot of stress on the motors, it sounds like. So I don't recommend doing that. I recommend doing it the other way, you know, bringing it to idle and then gradually increasing its throttle. Other buttons on this quadcopter, this takes your photos, and also it sets your headless mode by holding down for 3 seconds. This activates your video, and when it's in headless mode, it has that annoying beep. This activates your video, and this activates your photos. Now, I got an airfield that's about 5 miles away from me, or this activates your flip. I got an airfield that's 5 miles away from me, but boy, can you hear those jets when they're taking off around here. I'm going to let these jets pass over, and then we're going to go into a flight. They go over about 10,000 feet, but noisy as hell when they do go over. So let's go for, one thing I want to discuss before they get here. Notice this. This does not come with this screen. This was homemade. What I got for you here, hopefully they're going the other direction. What I got for you is, I made this out of foam board that I got from the local dollar store. Very easy to make. These are 70 millimeters in width. This top board is 130 millimeters in width, and the length of this is about 170 millimeters. You can get foam board for about $1 at the dollar store. Cut it into this shape, and then just tape it using electrical tape. And here, see, they're noisy as hell. That guy's way about 10,000 feet up. I'll keep on talking. I'm not going to stop. But I used electrical tape to tape it together. This works really well at cutting out the sunlight so that you can actually see the screen through here. Now notice that I also have included a RunCam HD camera inside there, so we'll be able to actually see what this quadcopter is seeing on the FPV screen for today's flight. So let's go do it. First off, I got to turn on this camera. Okay, the airplanes are out of the area. Plugging in the quadcopter power. Turning on the transmitter. Turning on the video screen. We have a signal and doing an automatic takeoff. Oh, got to bind it. Automatic takeoff. Pretty cool, huh? Again, you got to maintain that altitude. Now I'm going to increase the throttle a bit. I'm going to take it up to about that level there and fly around the area. I'm looking in my screen, seeing what the screen sees. I'm going to hit record. Recording. So you can see what the screen is recording. Let's take it up even higher. And upwind a bit. And putting it into hover. And doing a slow rotate. Now this black box works really well at cutting out that light. Now let's go down this way, see what kind of range we get. I'm at about 70 meters, I'm guessing. And I'm going to bring it by me. Turning it toward me. I'm going to fly overhead. And then bring it over there, and then I'm going to reduce throttle now. Pointing it toward me, reducing throttle. And setting that altitude there. It maintains its altitude pretty well. I got a breeze. That's the breeze pushing it away. Am I still recording? I'm going to turn off the video. Main reason being I want to save some battery power here. Let's go upwind at this altitude here. I'm going to go out to about that distance there, about the 100 meters. Put it in hover, turn it on the recorder again, rotating the camera. I think it's pointing toward me. Let me see here. Yeah, I see me off in the distance there. And I'm just going to let it hover. Using its auto control for the hover. The wind's blowing it by. Just let it drift with the wind. And keep it pointed at me. I'm looking inside my screen here. I don't know if you can see that, folks. To keep the quadcopter pointed toward me. Now this FPV is pretty, it works really cool. You know this box that I made, I'm going to make a video demonstrating how to make this. It really, really does work. It works very well. And it's very easy to make. And I'm also thinking of putting a Fresnel lens on the front of it. The reason being, it'll magnify the video even more. So it makes it a better flyer. So, yeah, this is really cool quadcopter. As compared to the Q212. Q212, I think, was underpowered for what they were trying to do with it. This one here does have the power to do what I think they were trying to achieve with the Q212. This one is actually really, really cool. Let me turn around. Again, pointing it at me. Checking my screen. That's me in the distance there. And let's fly down the roads. We'll go up the road here. And turn her around. Letting it hover. You know, you can fly hands off. I'm flying hands off, folks. That's really cool how that barometer works. Now, let's give it some increased pitch and see if it maintains that altitude. It does if you give it gradual. If you give it a fast increase of pitch, it will drop. But I'm staying in 40% for this flying today. See what I mean about it dropping there, especially when it's turning. But when you let go of the pitch and roll, it goes back to its altitude again. Its preset altitude. And then it maintains it. Cool. This is a really cool quadcopter. I think people would like this. Especially how it's maintaining its altitude. It makes FPV flying really, really easy. As long as you don't go too fast, you're not going to drop. I'm looking at my black box here. There's some garbage over there I see in my black box. Let's fly over the garbage. Then I'm going to turn it back toward me. Fly it over. Where am I? I'm off to the right. There I am. Hello. Hello. Cool quadcopter. And I haven't demonstrated. Let's turn off that video and demonstrate its final features. Namely, headless mode. Let's go off toward the mountains there. The video is off. I can see that. Okay, I'm off in the direction of, I'm flying upwind, or in the direction of the headless mode. Then I'm going to press the 1 key return. and it flies very slowly back toward me. Maintaining that altitude. It has that annoying beep though while it does that. Okay, let's try out the headless mode. Left, pirouettes left, pirouettes right, pirouettes forward, and pirouettes back. And I'm reducing throttle to bring it down lower. I'm going up toward the mountain. Okay. Now let's demonstrate that automatic landing before we run out of battery power. I don't know how much battery power I got here. Headless mode, coming out of headless mode. Let's say we want to land right here. You position yourself over it, then we're going to press and hold this button here. And it automatically lands. Try to maintain a steady position. And then it shuts down. So that's pretty darn cool. Let's try that automatic takeoff. Or I didn't show you the gradual takeoff. Again, you hold it down and hold them inboard, and it enters idle. And you can take off gradually. Well, kind of gradually by increasing the throttle. How much battery power I got? How are my lights? Are they blinking yet? Yeah, they're kind of blinking right now. Back ones are. So I'm going to land this here shortly. But again, very easy to fly this thing. But because of its size, let's land it again. Because of its size, I don't recommend this for beginners. You know, it's just a little too large for a beginner to be flying. But overall, it's a pretty darn cool quadcopter. I still got signal on it. Let's see if we can see me on it. So, I hope you enjoyed this flight. Here, I'm looking at my screen. It's Quadcopter 101. Again, this is the Q212G from WLToys with barometer, altitude hold. Works really well. Really, really well. We're going to see this coming out on more quadcopters, more and more quadcopters within the next year. I guarantee it. It's really, really cool the way that works. So I hope you enjoyed this flight. This is Quadcopter 101. Signing out.